older daughter. She was like, I love my sister so much, but sometimes I don't know why I just want to hurt her.
How did you handle that confession?
We had fortunately not long before that done the episode that we did about lying. And so I had that in mind enough to start by like thanking her for telling me and telling her she was brave.
Nice.
And then I told her I was calling the police just to scare her.
You ever heard of kid jail?
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about navigating sibling dynamics. Once we got into this topic, we realized we could probably go on for about 100 hours. So this will be an idea that we come back to in future episodes. But this is kind of a jumping off point. Max has got kids aged 3, 6, and 8. I've got a 1-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. So we are in the shit of helping our kids manage what will hopefully be one of the most profound relationships in their life. No pressure. Here we go.
All right, Matt, on today's episode, we're talking about siblings, brothers, sisters, and everything in between. We're going to talk about sibling conflicts. We're going to talk about different dynamics, hand-me-downs, all kinds of good, fun stuff. So you know what? We can actually start at the beginning, and then we're going to talk about older kids right after. Okay, so starting with young kids, when they really started interacting. And actually, we got a DM on Instagram about this. And this actually was one of the impeti. Well, the impetus is for this episode saying like, look, I got like a 9-month-old and an almost 2.5-year-old, let's say. And it's right when the 9-month-old starts to be able to crawl and grab the 2.5-year-old or 3-year-old's toys. That's a problem because the 2.5 and 3-year-old does not have self-regulation yet. And it's wacha, judo chop. And that's super, super hard. You want to leave the kids, right? When you have a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old, 3-month-old can be doing tummy time. You can be making dinner. You kind of like not ignore them, but they're over there and things are fine.
Yeah. You can go bowling, go get drinks.
Yeah.
Come back.
Take a quick flight to Chicago, come back.
Yeah.
When there is hitting involved, we can't have kids hurting each other. And the boundaries that we use, and I think that most people do, and that are, I think, strong boundaries, no hitting, no physical harm, and no like mean shit, like name calling or like gaslighting or verbal abuse type shit.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you're going to let them like play. When that hitting is happening, a lot of times it's going to the older kid and empathizing. First of all, you make sure that the baby's okay, but then it's like, older kid, yo, is everything okay? Like, how are you feeling? Are you frustrated? A lot of times the kids just need to be seen or heard. And sometimes they're acting out because they don't have enough parental interaction, which is,
I thought about this so much for our older daughter that like, baby, you used to be the most important person in the world. And now you're still one of the most important people in the world. Like that's what she went through, just inevitably, right? If you're doing your job right as a parent, that's what your older kid goes through.
Right.
They are no longer the only kind of center of things in that house. Well, of course they're going to be mad about that. Of course they're going to feel like they're lacking for parental attention, no matter how fucking hard you try, because when there's a baby, there's a baby.
That's so hard. I mean, I asked my 8-year-old today, like, what's the hardest part about having like a little kid around? It's like, oh, when she like rips up my drawings or like draws all over my drawings and then she doesn't get in trouble. And it's like, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
There's kind of no way around it.
Yeah. Well, and not only it's like she doesn't get in trouble. If I older kid did that, I would.
Yeah.
There is this double standard where babies and toddlers can just fuck shit up. And you're like, well, they can't help it.
Yeah.
You do your best to correct all the things like not letting the baby fuck up the older kid's thing by putting it up on the table. But there's something that's just inevitable that's hard about it. And I do think you have like an active role to play in helping them figure that out. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And also it's like you want to try to create somewhat of safe spaces where they can interact. You mentioned something great, that when you want to foster a good relationship with your oldest daughter, you do something where you never have to say, stop doing that. Don't do that. That's dangerous. You do something where the answer is like always yes.
Yeah.
So trying to find something for, let's say you have a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old, something that the 3-year-old can do with the baby that is always okay.
Mm-hmm.
You make up some sort of game with a baby toy that they can do with the baby, because sometimes it's just like free play with an older kid and a baby. It's going to lead to World War III.
It's hard. Well, it's funny. In some ways, it's similar to free play with a kid and an adult. It's like how we find different things interesting. So it can be hard to find something that we both want to do,
Right.
I do feel like I spend a lot of time, I'll be playing something with my 5-year-old, and then the baby will walk up, and I can almost see that my 5-year-old's like, our game's going to get fucking lame now, because dad's got to spend half his time like rolling a ball 8 inches.
Yeah.
And then cheering. And so I do feel like I spend a lot of time trying to find games that are like, I'll throw this ball far, you run grid it. While you're doing that, I'll roll it to the baby. The baby rolls it back to me. You turn around, like just these ridiculous, just to try to have them both have a good time. But I guess my point is, it changes. We used to build these big forts on the floor of our house, and now we can't. Or because like I can't keep the baby out of the living room for days on end.
Right.
There's just things that are different that are going to piss the older kid off.
Yeah.
There's just like, there's no way around it.
Yeah. It's hard. It's just like, especially when there's a baby, it's trying to find something fun, something that's interesting, almost like in a weird kind of, this is maybe inappropriate to say, like the baby's like a pet. Can you get the baby to do something?
Yeah.
Can you teach the older kid to like, oh, what if you do this and you can make the baby laugh? Isn't that fun? And it's like, oh, that's the older kid's shtick with the baby. Oh, you can make the baby laugh, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there aren't a lot of games that are actually fun unless the older kid can kind of act like a parent and just kind of play a fun kid game.
Yeah. And this is something that I feel like, okay, because there are inevitable things that are going to be harder for the older kid, what do they get out of it that's great? And I think that like when you talk about them having a shtick with the kid or being able to make the baby laugh, and kind of having them be in that parent role, I think kids want responsibility, kind of more than we give it to them. And I think maybe because my older daughter is 5 years older than my younger daughter, we've really tried to have her be a part of taking care of the baby, which you got to be careful because you don't want to make the baby like the older kid's burden, but just make her feel like she's helping raise her, I guess. And I think that's the same thing with making them laugh, is you're like, yeah, come have this responsibility with us.
Yeah, 100%. And like when you have older kids, like we had a similar age gap with our oldest and our youngest. It's fun to tell the older kid who's 5, 6, or 7, like about a baby.
Yeah.
They love, superlatives. This is the first time this baby has ever eaten edamame. And they're like, what? They've never had it? And it's like, yeah, this is, do you want to be there when it happens?
I do think there's something really cool to just talk about what a special thing it is to have a sibling. Mm-hmm. My brother and I are different in many ways, but there are ways in which he understands me better than anyone else in the fucking world, and always will. We have like a shorthand in the way we talk to each other. It's an amazing relationship, even when there's parts of it that are complicated, or it can be an amazing relationship. And so I think like we've tried to say that to our older daughter, that like you get to have a sister, that is such a special thing, and try to hold it up. It's kind of almost like magic.
The reason it's so important is it is so painful at certain times. It's just more work. You have to basically be 2 types of parent for like a baby and an older kid.
Yeah.
But it's worth it because once they get older, like we have a 3, 6, and 8-year-old, they all 3 play together all the fucking time. They could literally play together if we like left food out like they were animals. They could play for 72 hours.
Wow. The whole age range.
All 3 of them.
That's fucking unreal.
Because even the 3-year-old, they finds way, like for example, they'll take we have a slippery floor on our kitchen and living room. They'll put a blanket down and put the 3-year-old in there, and the older kids will like run around, and like she's like in that like a sled and like run around the house, and she's like getting slid around.
So good.
One time out of every 100 times, she gets completely crushed into a wall, but it's like, it's worth it.
Man, one of my like best childhood memories was me and my brother and this kid that lived down the street who was a little older than my brother. So they were both way older than I was. we invented this game where I was a running back and I had a football and tried to run through a yard, and I had to get past both of them. But the only thing they could do was hit me with beanbag chairs. And it was so even.
Yeah.
Even though I was smaller, and it was 2 against 1, because it's hard to knock somebody over the beanbag chair. And it was so fucking fun. And then I went home that night and I went to the bathroom and I was like, Mom, I'm peeing blood. What's happening?
Please don't tell me. Were you actually?
Yeah. Like,
oh no.
Yeah, I had a bruised kidney. But it was like, it was worth it. It was so fucking great. Kids are good at inventing games. They are.
Yeah.
And it speaks to your parenting too. They like each other. So they want to put in the work of making a game that works for all of them.
A lot of times we have conflict where the older kids are like, this is not fun. We don't want to play with the young kid. But I think that a major skill is learning how to make your own fun and gamification and making shit up. Like what we'll do is they'll say, I don't want to play with a 3-year-old. She's too young. We want to play Monopoly. I'm like, well, is there a way you guys could find a fun game to play? Like, what if you guys took some pillows and put them on the ground and made a jumping pad? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. And I'm like, okay, remember, if somebody gets hurt, we might have to stop the game. So try to, make it so that it's safe for everybody, including the 3-year-old. And then they'll make a game that is fun for them, but then fun for the 3-year-old. That's a major skill.
I thought you were going to say, remember, if somebody gets hurt, I never fucking said any of this. This was your idea. If mommy asks.
Yeah.
But it all starts with your kids ultimately liking each other.
Yeah.
Because there's siblings out there where they don't like their brother. Like people don't like their brother.
Well, sometimes you have a older kid who's a little bit controlling. We sort of have that dynamic. I think it's common. Oldest kid, kind of type A, maybe because we were a little bit more helicoptery.
Yeah.
And so they end up being a little more rule followy. Second child is a little more wild, a little more rambunctious, can't follow the rules as well. So the older kid gets a little more frustrated with the younger kid. We had that dynamic for many years and still do. So we have 8 and 6 are kind of at each other's throats a little bit. Or the 8-year-old's at the 6-year-old's throat. So it's just a matter of how do you ensure that it doesn't completely blow up? Now you want to let them work this sort of stuff out. But if things start to devolve, you hear it. Stop it. Come on, dude. Dude, no, roll the dice first. That's when I'll go over. And it's weird. As long as the younger kid or the one who's being attacked is okay and not like freaking out, I actually go to the transgressor first. And don't even try right away. Calm down, man. Calm down. It's just a game. Boom. World War III. You got to validate those feelings first. Hey, bud, are we frustrated? And usually it's about to blow and the older kid's about to cry. He's like, yeah, younger kid can't do X, Y, and Z. It's like, I totally get it. Gosh, that must be so frustrating. Then go to, but do you see that the younger guy, he's trying to play with you, man. Like he's doing such a good job. And I'll give him some kudos. This is where if you have the time, you burn up a little time where just the energy in the room will dissipate. I've probably done that for Monopoly.
Monopoly alone.
7 times in the last 6 months. But now they play Monopoly. It's getting less and less frequent. There's more and more patience. And they just become better and better friends over time. The more that you let each other see each other for who they are. And then I'll tell the little guy, you know how frustrating this must be for older guy?
Like you suck at this shit, dog.
And then again, older guy, you see?
Yeah.
Like, little guy's trying. Isn't he so good? Do you know other 6-year-olds who can play Monopoly? Man, he's so good. Good job, man.
Yeah. It feels like a tightrope walk. It really does. Because you don't want to make, there's just this awkward truth that the 9-year-old's more capable than the 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I remember as a younger brother really feeling that. It's just like, God, this guy's just fucking taller than me and he didn't do all these things first.
Yeah. And then sometimes younger kid says, I don't want to play anymore.
It just bails.
Because it's not fun.
It's not fun.
It's not fun.
Yeah. Well, not if everybody's pissed off. That's kind of a good bail, honestly, by the younger sibling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tricky. I have definitely had moments where I genuinely just felt bad for both kids. There was a night when my daughter, we had a rough day for whatever reason. And I think I saw her kind of shove her sister. Mm-hmm. I got mad at her because she said she hadn't. And I kind of knew what I saw. It was just one of those, she kind of couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So she was like, no, I didn't.
Very common.
Very common. She couldn't fight. She wasn't ready for it. But we kind of settled down and then we got in bed later that night. And she was like, I love my sister so much. And she does. Like, it's really great. She really fucking does. But then she says, but sometimes I don't know why, I just want to hurt her.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're in the back seat and the baby starts crying and I say, oh, we've been in the car too long, it's because I pinched her. I was like, fuck. And in that moment, I felt so bad for her because she was so ashamed of doing it. And she really didn't understand why. And also, of course, like, my other kid's getting fucking pinched and I didn't even know about it, you know? And I just felt so bad for both of them at once.
How did you handle that confession?
We had fortunately not long before that done the episode that we did about lying. And so I had that in mind enough to start by like thanking her for telling me and telling her she was brave.
Nice.
And then I told her I was calling the police just to scare her a little bit. Now,
you ever heard of kid jail? Call the Amsterdam police, send you to kid jail.
Oh, man. Baby, I was taping when you said that. Yeah. That was your confession. No, it went well. It was good. But I did kind of say, like, that can't be happening. So I'm going to watch a little closer when y'all are together. And it was okay. And I honestly think it got better afterwards. I think that she started doing it less.
It's basically firm boundaries, but then love and nurturing within. So the boundaries need to be like no hitting, no, bullying or like mean shit. But outside of that, especially when they get older, they need to kind of figure a lot of this stuff out. I'll jump in there a little bit once or twice a year, maybe like once every other month. Okay. They're fighting about Paw Patrol versus this. Actually it's probably more like once every 3 weeks, but if they're like Paw Patrol versus Ninja Turtles and I hear it kind of getting pretty aggressive, what's going to happen is the big kid's just going to put his foot down and then he's going to get his way. Or the baby, the 3-year-old's going to scream and get their way. I'd much rather them develop these sort of negotiation skills. So I'll get in there and kind of be like a negotiator and be like, okay, so what do you see? The little kid wants to watch Paw Patrol. Yeah. What do you feel about that? Well, I don't like it. It's too baby. Got it. What do you want to watch? I want to watch Ninja Turtles. It's like, okay, cool. 3-year-old, what do you think? Ninja Turtles are too scary. It's like, oh man, that's rough. What are we going to do, guys? You can't just put your foot down. So what can you give and what can you get?
Interesting.
Our older kid is now really good at negotiation. He's like, how about this? One Paw Patrol, and then we'll watch a big kid show that isn't scary. Boom. My work is done. I leave and then it's clean. 98% of the time, they are figuring this shit out on their own. But if it's going the wrong way, and it's going the wrong way a lot, I think you need to get in there.
Yeah.
And then get out.
Well, because I think you got to get in there because there's dynamics that are true. Like you hear a lot about being a middle kid. It was funny when you were talking about what show are they going to watch. It's like, well, the oldest kid is the biggest and can put their foot down. The youngest kid can pitch the biggest fucking fit. So the middle kid just never gets what they want.
But he also likes all the shows.
So maybe that's interesting.
Could be because he's the middle kid and like can shade either direction for age appropriate television.
Yeah.
Or he's just the peacemaker.
It's funny. There's something about this situation that I'm married to a middle kid and I feel like it's just good information. It's just picturing them trying to watch a show. But you know what? A thing that you were saying was reminding me of this great fucking thing I heard. There was this bus driver, and I don't remember in what city, but he kind of became famous for diffusing conflict on his bus because he ran a bus route where people just got rowdy a lot. And he always did the same thing. He'd pull the bus over. The first thing he'd do is he'd say, what happened? Can you tell me one at a time? Mm-hmm. And then he'd have everybody tell him what happened. And then he'd say, if there's a fight, I have to call the police, but I really don't want to call the police. So what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. And that was like 98% of what made him brilliant was just those were always his first two questions. Because like everybody gets to feel heard. Okay, what do you want to do? And that's basically what you're doing with your kids. It's really, you're not solving it for them.
Right.
You're not in there saying like, oldest kid, why don't you give 2 episodes of this? Then you'll trade it. Like you're not up there as the auctioneer.
No, you're just mediating.
Yeah.
For them to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
You definitely need to not take sides before you hear the whole story, or not take sides at all. I mean, how often do you have a transgressor where it's the middle kid, the younger kid, or the older kid? One of the kids always does the shit, you know it. But then it's like, you can't do that. This is a court of law. This is you have to treat everyone innocent until proven guilty, because the worst fucking thing you can do, you go in and then it's like, older kid, what have you done? It's like, oh, so my parents just think I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's really, really tough. You got to treat every incident like an isolated incident.
Yeah. We went to this party last weekend out at this farm, and my oldest daughter, you know how they'll make like a best friend in an hour and then they're holding hands, doing everything together. It's so fun to watch. Mm-hmm. They were running all over the place. And then this new friend of hers got hurt, and I kind of found him. And my daughter looked at me and she just said, I didn't do anything. She just fell. And I, like, her first instinct was that I was about to blame her somehow. That can't come from nowhere. When the baby gets hurt, she sees us wondering or something. But it just made me feel shitty. You know, it's like, I don't know. And I was like, baby, I did not think that didn't even cross my mind it like crossed my mind, but I didn't think that was what happened.
Yeah. Well, she probably fucking did it. No, she probably didn't. I have no idea.
No, you know,
that's the thing. We don't know. You don't know.
With her, I can still tell when she's bullshitting me. Oh, yeah. She's gotten pretty good, but there's still like, she like looks at me a little too long.
Well, because they don't want to sell it too hard, because if they sell it too hard, like, I swear I didn't do it, then they used up all their chips.
Yeah.
There's like a deep down innate thing with humans. Like, we know you wouldn't pinky promise and kiss it.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's right.
But like, we'll get into some things. We have 3 where in your subconscious, there's a kid you're kind of like sparring with. And you probably go in and out of this with your older kid. There are times where a certain kid will grind your gears. And it's really good to have that awareness where it's like, yo, I'm like so on the 4-year-old right now. Like, holy shit. And if you really admit it to yourself, you're kind of like, kid's a fucking asshole right now.
Yeah.
That's not something you want to have inside you. But that's why, like, a good relationship with your partner where you can talk about that type of shit, or like, you know, a friend group where you can kind of say like, oh my God, my 1-year-old is the fucking worst. I can't stand it. And if you don't sometimes just say it out loud, it becomes the truth.
Yeah. I had a friend a long time ago. He's like, yeah, me and my daughter are so tight right now, and my son just aren't. And my wife and my son, they basically, each of them had taken a kid for a little while.
Right.
Because that was who they were grooving in with. And I remember kind of wondering, like, is that fucked up? But then I talked to him years later. He is very close with both of his kids. It was just like, at this time, it was just oil and water. There's like an ebb and flow to how good things are going.
Yeah.
I think that's true in basically every relationship in your life. There's an ebb and flow to the level of closeness.
Sometimes it's even just, you are good at 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say I'm good at 2-year-olds. Let's say my wife isn't. And she like is really good at babies and really good at older kids. The 2-year-old, I'm going to have more patience for. And then the 2-year-old's going to start maybe acting out on the other parent and be like, I don't like that parent. You think that's going to make that parent better or worse at 2-year-olds?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also might make your partner a little bit mad at you. You know what I mean? When it's going good for you and a kid and less good for your partner and a kid, it's always kind of awkward, and vice versa.
Yeah. And also, it's just like, quick sidebar. It's so unfair to moms, because I feel like moms do more tactically. On the whole, I know that there are dads who do the majority of the stuff in the house. Look, on the whole, moms do the majority of the tactical CEO stuff in the house. And more often than not, if you have like a sensitive, you know, fancy boy dad like us who like cares about feelings, the kids are like, Dad's so fun. And then the moms are like, what the fuck am I? Just chopped liver over here?
Yeah.
And it's so awkward. Like, if you go on the Reddit subreddit, like on Daddit, so many posts are like, my kid keeps saying like he loves me more. What do I do about this? Like, the mom is like fucking doing everything, and I'm just like the fun dad.
It's like, it's easy to be fun when you're not so fucking totally overtaxed.
Yeah. Well, just to bring it back to like some tactical stuff about siblings, just because, you know, I'm a tactical sort of guy.
I feel like
Just,
I'm like here to derail you.
No, this is great.
It's like my role in this episode is just to like fuck up the structure.
I just want to make sure we have some tactical things, other things about siblings that I would lament not saying. One, we've talked about it before, making sure that you're not always trying to parent all of your kids at once. So if you have 2 kids, you have 3 kids, you have more. But if you can have one-on-one relationships with your kids, that's so great. Those one-on-one relationships are so gold. Oh, I'm going to take the 3-year-old. I'm going to take the 6-year-old. I'm going to take the 8-year-old. It's like, oh, it's just you and me. They love it. And you develop your own little relationship. Otherwise, your relationship is parent to kids.
Yeah.
It's not parent to individual.
Yeah.
And I think so often with multiple kids, it's so much survival. It's like, oh man, you're giving me another fucking thing to do. But it actually makes your life easier. It's a net positive.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's always like the stuff that takes a little extra time in the moment, but probably saves you time later. I think that is so big. I remember feeling there was like a phase where it really started to dawn on my older daughter that this baby was going to take a lot of our attention, where she just got like pretty rough to deal with. It was just hard. We were just going through a hard time, and we weren't handling it that well either because there's a baby. Nobody's sleeping enough. We got a whole weekend day to go out, just the 2 of us. We went out. I was like, holy shit, there's my daughter. There's the kid that I have had such fun with for so much of our lives. My wife and I, most weekends, if we're in town, we'll each go on a date with one kid and maybe even swap halfway through the day. Because, then you just get to be about them. It's hard to fucking mediate a day between kids who are 5 years apart.
It's so fun to have the whole family together. That is important. But it's equally important to have these individual relationships because also you just want to make sure that the older kid does not get hindered. We live in Park City. We do mountain biking and skiing. I realized like, holy shit, our oldest kid is riding stuff that only a 5 or 6-year-old can do. He can do like gnarly shit. He's ridden one gnarly trail because we're like tamping him down to a 5 or 6-year-old level. Same thing with games. Play a game that your younger brother can play. It's like every once in a while you need to have that one-on-one time. Let them push their boundaries.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the other thing that feels weird is like I have spent less time with the baby by this point in her age than I did with my older daughter at this point in her life. So like in some ways I feel like, oh, the baby's not getting nearly as much attention as my older daughter did. Well, but she gets to grow up with this sister. I mean, there is this kind of amazing way in which no 2 people really grow up in the same household, even your siblings.
Oh, 100%. It's a different experience.
You grow up in a totally different environment.
To make people feel better about that, I called our friend Matt and asked him, because he had kids kind of before most of us. He's like a year or 2 ahead of me. And I called him and I was like, yo, my first kid, he's like super advanced at reading and math. And I'm like all over him, like helping him. Anything he wants to learn, I'm like his encyclopedia. There's no way I can be there for our second kid in the same way because it's got 2 kids. What should I do? He's like, don't worry about it, man. Second kid's got first kid talking at his face all day. Oh, guess what? Second kid's more advanced in language and reading.
Yeah.
I'm like, what about third kid? She's literally just getting left on the ground. Forget she exists for an hour at a time. She's the most advanced out of all of them. I went back to look at videos. She gets 1/5 the amount of like in your face, tummy time, attention, whatever that the first 2 kids got. Her language is 3 months ahead of both other kids.
Yeah. Wow.
Hands down.
Interesting.
Once the kids know how to play together, you can talk that in their face all the time.
Yeah.
Youngest kids can be the most advanced.
Yeah.
If they like each other.
Yes. That's like the other thing that you get out of it is that time that they spend with each other is really of benefit to all of them. Hey, I wanted to ask you, what was it like with you and your brother? Did y'all fight? Did y'all fight physically?
No, we were like best buddies, like totally fine.
You never fought?
Nope. I did punch him in the arm with what's this called? Like this knuckle? What's that called? Remember that? Pointy knuckle punch?
That had a name?
It had a name. Like bloody knuckles? No, it was like you put your middle finger out and then you punch him with that. And then we were playing like NFL 95 on Sega Genesis, and he would use the sweep play, which you're not allowed to use because it's automatic touchdown every time. Or no, it wasn't sweep. It was the screen. You move right, you throw left. It's automatic touchdown every time.
Yep.
And so he would do it, and then I would punch him in the arm. and he would cry. And then he had like a bunch of bruises on his arm. So I punched him for probably 3 months in the arm, a fuckload. But outside of that,
got it out of your system.
Yeah. Outside of that, like we were like best buddies, and I included him with all my older friends. I like loved how awesome he was and stuff. And I had a much younger sister who's 10 years younger. And then I have 20 or younger sisters, you know, that I didn't grow up with really. All like pretty solid. It's a different relationship. That's more of a uncle relationship.
Yeah.
Because I'm 20 years older.
You definitely can't hit them.
No.
Yeah, it's different.
Now, if I punch them with the arm thing, that would be a bad
no,
situation.
yeah.
How about you and your brother?
You know, it's weird. It's hard to remember. I know that we like fought physically when I was young, mostly just because my parents tell stories about it. I do remember times where I would give him a hard time knowing he would chase me, and then I'd run and he'd be chasing me and I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember how old I was or really how often that happened. I do remember being scared sometimes, I guess, but how can you not be? It like if you have an older sibling, they're a fucking loose cannon for a lot of your life and they're bigger than you are.
Yeah.
He was a good brother, you know? We played fucking rough. I mean, I broke his nose. There was a time when he like accidentally bit my elbow really hard because I kind of like elbowed him in the mouth. The slow motion blood. Whoosh. No, I went up to shoot and I had my, elbow out and he had his teeth in. So yeah, we did hurt each other a lot, but it was mostly just, I think as we got older playing rough, and we played together a fucking ton. I mean, invented games that I still remember as some of the most fun I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
But sometimes I was scared because I was littler,
That's normal. And like sometimes the older kid will do like nasty shit to the younger kid. And I don't like to intervene a lot, but when I do, I'll actually play it out. I'll be like, you're going to know your little brother for the rest of your life. Your friends at school. Yeah, I don't know any of my second grade friends. Your little bro and your little sis, you're going to know them till the day you die, motherfucker. Who do you want him to remember you as?
So do we want to watch something for him, or do we want him to remember you as his cruel older brother?
Exactly.
I'm just saying it's so hard to navigate. I'm just busting your balls because it's so fraught.
But it is worth it. It is worth it.
Yeah.
Because these kids are best fucking friends and they will be for life. And it's like, he's going to be at your wedding. Really? Yeah. Who do you want to be to him?
Do you think that he is able to use that? Like, I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but I can't figure out how to frame the question without sounding like an asshole. Like, do you think that helps him? Do you think that he's able to think long-term in that way and have it affect his actions day to day?
I don't think it's going to work for everybody. I don't know if I would use it with the middle child who's more emotional or whatever. Our oldest child is so logical and so forward-looking. I think it definitely works for him, for sure.
Interesting.
Because he's like, wow, this is like a serious relationship. It helps with certain children who maybe look that way.
Well, it's funny. It sounds like he's kind of like you.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're often having this conversation where you are thinking really tactically.
Yeah.
And you have a rational strategy and then you do it and it works. Like, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? Your kids fucking play together for 7 hours.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I think I'm coming at it differently. Like maybe more like your middle kid.
Yeah.
Like how do we get this room feeling the way it needs to feel or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's just different strokes for different folks. There isn't one way to do this. I think the best way is just like really trying to understand each of your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one story that a friend of mine told me. So a friend of mine had a girl first and then he had a boy. He said he went to a guy that he knew that had a boy and a girl. He said, gosh, I feel like I've learned how to be a parent to a daughter and now I'm going to have to be a parent to a son. And I don't know if I know how to do that. And the guy he was talking to said, it wouldn't matter if you were having another girl or if you're having every kid you're going to have to figure out how to parent them.
Yeah.
And I really am trying to, like, as our 1-year-old starts to really have her personality, I'm trying to figure out what that means, and like take her lead a little bit and not like put her in some role because her sister's this thing. So she's this thing. Like, I worry about that the older one will be like the high achieving, but also kind of challenging one. And the younger one's like chill and fun and everybody. That's an easy dynamic to fall into. And it can become the story of the family. And I just don't want to put a story on anybody.
Yeah. But sometimes that's just kind of what happens because because they are so different.
Yeah.
And it will just be who they are.
Yeah.
And they'll even say it. They'll call it the dynamic themselves.
Yeah.
They'll literally be like, oh, I'm the one who gets hurt all the time. And the older one is the one who does this. It's like they know it because it's true.
But don't they get that from us?
No.
Because my older daughter will say like, I'm a crazy lady. And I'm like, I know you heard us say that. But if I ever try to tell her she's not, she's like, yes, I fucking am a crazy lady. So I don't know.
But she is crazy.
Yeah. I mean.
In a good way. Like I've met her. Like she's not, I've met a lot of like 6-year-old, 5-year-old girls from birthday parties, volunteering at the school. Like she is a rambunctious, fun, outgoing extrovert.
Yeah.
Because you haven't seen, because you're youngest, you have one older and one baby. I'm telling you, man, all 3 of ours are completely different. And everyone says it and you're like, yeah, okay, you're putting them in a box. No, like they're totally different people.
Yeah.
Even the 2 boys are like, yeah, they both like digging and looking for worms, but like that's pretty much the only thing they have in common.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like so different.
Yeah.
Our girl is closer to our oldest boy in terms of
like temperament, like temperamentally, they're more similar.
Or just like if you were to give humans 250 categories that they have, like 0 to 10.
Yeah.
The 3-year-old and the 8-year-old boy are very similar.
That's what I mean by temperamentally.
Well, that's a big word for me. So I'll get there.
Fucking with you. Yeah. And it's funny because it's like part of me wonders, well, what of that is just the way they're wired, and what of that is that they gotta like fill in some gap that's not yet taken in the family. And I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's the family you grow up in, and it's part of it makes you who you are, for better or worse. So like maybe trying to correct for all of these dynamics, like, no, it just becomes part of your personality.
And it's a lot of work to make sure that they're not a toxic situation. Like an older sibling can literally be a bully and ruin a kid's life. So last little PSA, if you have a bully older kid and they're like fucking verbally abusive or physically abusive, I'll work it out. No. If it's like someone being a fucking tyrant in someone's life, an oppressor, you must intervene.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's worth it because the reason I love like having multiple kids is I picture the future of our family. Don't focus on just like the first 18 years. You're going to know your kids as adults much, much longer. And they're going to know each other as adults much, much longer. So doing that work for that sibling camaraderie is so worth it.
You know what I saw that was really cool is last Christmas, my mom's side of the family got together for the first time in a long time. And my mom has a brother and a sister, and they're both married, and they all came to the house. And then all the other kind of younger generation went home, but I stayed up with them because I was staying. It was in my parents' house. Mm-hmm. And they all were just talking mostly about aging because they're mostly getting into their 70s now. And I realized like these are their peers that they like grew up with, and they were at each other's weddings. And that now is like as they enter this phase of like, they're almost more important to each other than ever. And it just really struck me like, oh man, you really want that to be good, even if you're really different, which you probably are.
The only other thing is like hand-me-downs, so money, but just don't forget about the younger kids. We did kind of like a big thing like, oh, we got new shirts at Target. We only bought stuff for the older kid. Major fuck up.
Yeah.
The middle kid is just going to get their old stuff and the older kid.
The middle kid that never gets to watch their fucking stories. But you also never want them to feel like they're owed shit, you know? Like anytime one gets something, the other one's got it.
Well, then we shouldn't have made such a big deal out of it.
Right. You shouldn't have put on "We Are the Champions" and then just given shirts to your other 2 children.
Shouldn't have wrapped it and put it under a tree. Yeah.
The tree might have been a little too much.
Well, Santa didn't come for you this year.
This is an early Santa that's only for really the best and brightest.